in the United States really isn't like this. I mean, I don't know what your experience of capitalism is like, but that's not my experience of capitalism. Why are you saying that this way? Do you really mean the critique in this incisive a form in this way? Or is there something more or something else? And what I'm going to contend, as I said, is something more and something else. There's something else going. I think, yes, prima facie, you can sort of on the face of it, you can say, right, that he means what he says, but I would adjure you not to view his writing as a jurist writing, not to view his writing as a theologian who is writing, not to view his writing as a kind of a scientific theologian or even, a philosophically scientific theologian, but to view it more as a prophetic call, a prophetic challenge that is, up to the work of Jesus Christ. I'll have to explain that in great detail in a moment. But for the time being, there's a different interpretive key, a different hermeneutic that we have to use in reading a Pope Francis encyclical than when reading a Pope Benedict or a Pope St. John Paul encyclical, etc. What is the general interpretation that we can use? With respect to the critiques, like the critique of capitalism, and with respect to going right to the edge of doctrine where you just think, one more little teeny step and you're over the line, baby. You're just right there, right? When you get right down to that, why is he pushing to the edge? What about these critiques? I would just say, here are some things that he's going after prophetically. Number one, what is broken that very few people are paying attention to? I'm telling you, or there's an incisive critique, or there's pushing it to the edge, he's pointing out prophetically, something's broken and people aren't paying attention to it. I'm going to sting you, and you're going to pay attention to it. You can't help it. Second question, who is broken and nobody is paying attention to them? Or what group is broken that very few people are paying attention to? Third question, what is being ignored that Jesus Christ would not ignore? Third question, what is ignored that Jesus Christ would not ignore? And finally, fourth question, who is ignored that Jesus Christ would not ignore? So these are four questions, and I think these four questions, remember, Pope Francis has a pastoral mind. He's not operating out of what I'm going to call a theologian mentation, a philosophical mentation, a scientific mentation, a moral development, a moral doctrinal development mentation. He's working out of a very pastoral mentation, which I think, that's kind of a mental attitude of Weltanschauung that he's kind of utilizing to bring his particular brand of the papacy, of papal leadership, to the world. So that's with respect to the critiques and going to the edge. What about the strange get into the weeds things, like we see in Laudato Si? What's that about? What's he doing there? And I think what you're going to find is when he's going down and quoting scientists that I would never quote, in an apologetics volume, or going into, for example, people or issues that are very, very, issues that are very, very, in the weeds, how often we use our air conditioners. I'm going to suggest that those are invitations. So one thing is about challenges, right? Those are the critiques, and those are going to the edge. The other things are invitations. When you quote a scientist that, of course, we may not quote, a scientist who might be an atheist, I think this is a pure and simple outreach to a group of people who are saying, he's quoting one of our people. Maybe the church really does care about this issue from our perspective. Maybe the church is listening to this perspective, and of course they're quoting one of ours. I mean, that's a huge deal to a person who feels like, well, they don't care about us. They're an anachronistic institution. They don't care about the environment. Of course, none of these things are true. None of them. But they think it's true because they've already set up the straw man in their mind, and they're already going to shoot the straw man down until you quote somebody from their camp, at which point it's really hard to mow down their own guy as a straw man. I'm telling you, there's a genius to what Pope Francis does. You talk about the air conditioner issue, and you go, what? I mean, this is a doctrinal statement, and you're air conditioning? Are you kidding me? But this is of concern to, and some people are going to look at that and go, he cares about the air conditioner issue. That's one of our issues. That's the carbon blueprint. This is something we care about. And what he is doing is a very simple course of rhetoric we find in Aristotle. You want to appeal to somebody? Quote their guy. Quote their issue. Bring them in. Because it's really hard to just write off a group that's already acknowledged that your person, be it an agnostic or an atheist, be